Power is not stolen in a single night. It is surrendered piece by piece, often in the name of affection. The man who seeks to rise must understand this above all. Those who claim to love you will be the first to resist your transformation, not always out of malice but out of fear. Fear that your growth will make them irrelevant. Fear that your clarity will expose their dependency. Fear that the bond they once used to influence you will turn into a wall they cannot climb. Affection is the rope, guilt is the knot, and weakness is the noose. From the moment you step beyond the boundaries they are used to, those closest to you will begin to shape their love into chains. It will not appear as resistance. It will appear as concern. It will sound like protection. Don't change too much. They'll whisper, "You're not the same anymore." They'll say with teary eyes, but buried beneath those words is not love, it is possession. Because what they truly fear is losing the version of you that made them feel safe. You were easier to control when you were uncertain, when you were soft, when you asked for permission. That version served their comfort. Your ambition, your cold clarity, your discipline, these things disturb the order they've built around your weakness. To be powerful is to be alone in vision. The man who lets affection direct his decisions is already conquered. Love is often unconditional, only as long as you remain dependent. The moment you no longer need them, the terms change. They start to remind you of all they've done for you. They resurrect past kindnesses as currency. After all I did, this is how you repay me. But what they mean is, you no longer act according to my expectations. You were not loved unconditionally, you were rented, leased by emotional obligation, and your strength threatens to break the contract. You must be ruthless in the audit of your relationships. Affection must never override strategy. Emotions must be interrogated like prisoners under suspicion. Ask, does this love nourish me or imprison me? Does this bond sharpen me or soften me? If the answer is weakness, the bond must be severed or distanced, not because you lack love, but because you possess discipline. A man who leads with his heart in war loses both the war and the heart. The battlefield of life does not pause for sentiment. Even those with the best intentions can cripple you. A mother who holds her son too long creates a man who fears risk. A brother who reminds you of your past keeps you from becoming your future. A friend who always means well may be the one slowly dulling your edge. They will not tell you to stop growing. They will simply slow your steps, ask you to wait, tell you that you're moving too fast. They do not raise swords, they offer blankets. But in comfort, your fire dies. The most dangerous chains are not made of iron. They are woven from memories, laughter, shared wounds. These are the hardest to break because they remind you of who you were before you tasted power. They seduce you into returning to that version. But you cannot serve both your past and your future. You cannot be the protector of everyone's comfort and the architect of your own empire. One must be chosen, and that choice must be made with precision, not sentiment. The cold, blooded mind does not hate. It remembers. It studies. It understands that love is real, but it must never be sovereign. Power cannot kneel before emotion, not if it wants to survive. Those who succeed in this world are not those who love blindly. They are those who love with boundaries, with control, with strategy. To be feared is to be free from emotional manipulation. To be respected is to make it clear. Affection is not a weapon that can be used against you. Because the man who cannot be softened cannot be steered. There is no faster way to lose power than to act from sentiment. The man who allows his feelings to override his strategy will always become a servant to forces beyond his control. He believes himself kind, he believes himself noble, but what he truly becomes is predictable, exposed, and easy to move. Sentiment clouds judgment, and judgment is the cornerstone of dominance. Once your decision-making is infected with emotion, you no longer lead, you react. And a man who reacts is never feared. He is managed. People will speak of the heart as if it is a compass, as if it always points to what is right, but the heart is a liar. It is driven by impulse, nostalgia, and the soft memories of safer times. It craves comfort over clarity, familiarity over evolution. It wants what feels good, not what is necessary. And so the sentimental man will choose peace where war is needed, forgiveness where punishment is deserved, and delay where immediate execution is required, not because he lacks intelligence, but because he lacks the cold discipline to cut through his own weakness. Power demands you amputate what no longer serves you. That includes relationships, traditions, beliefs, and even versions of yourself. The sentimental man keeps everything out of guilt. He carries corpses on his back, old friends, broken promises, outdated loyalties, and wonders why he moves so slowly. He cannot act cleanly. Every step forward comes with apology. Every hard decision is softened by 1,000 justifications. And so he becomes trapped not by enemies but by the ghost of his former self. Those around you will encourage this poison. They will say you have a good heart, that you're not like those other ruthless people. They will praise your softness while they drain your strength. They will admire your empathy while they manipulate your time. And they will tell others what a kind man you are while they take what they need and leave you with nothing. Sentimentality becomes their weapon. They feed it to you in compliments until you forget how to act with force. You begin to seek moral validation rather than strategic success. The sentimental man wants to be loved for his goodness. But in a world ruled by predators, goodness is a costume. What they call morals are often just rules designed by the weak to keep the strong in chains. A predator who hesitates is devoured. A king who asks for forgiveness loses his throne. A general who mourns before the war is over loses the battle. Sentimentality is not compassion. It is treason against your own ambition. True power cannot flourish in a mind full of hesitation. You must become cold, not out of cruelty, but out of control. Coldness is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of it. It means you recognize emotion, but do not obey it. You see the guilt forming, but you do not kneel to it. You feel the pressure to be soft, but you do not surrender. This is the essence of strength, to do what must be done, even when it burns. Every empire requires blood. Every transformation requires sacrifice. The sentimental man wants to preserve everything, his relationships, his image, his innocence. But power is not preserved. It is taken, protected, and wielded without apology. To remain sentimental is to place your enemies above your interests. It is to weep when you should be building. It is to hold hands when you should be holding a sword. There will be moments when your heart aches, when turning your back feels like betrayal, when walking away feels inhuman. This is the test. Power whispers, do it anyway. It asks for clarity over comfort, decision over emotion. And if you hesitate, if you pause to seek permission from your feelings, you lose, not in an instant, but in increments. You lose time, you lose leverage, you lose yourself. The strong act, not because they feel like it, but because it is required. They are not blind to pain, they are simply not governed by it. Sentiment is the luxury of those who are already safe. For those who seek to rise, sentimentality is a weight tied to the ankle. It slows the blade. It delays the move. It makes you human when you need to be more than that. Loyalty, in its raw and unexamined form, is one of the most dangerous illusions a man can serve. It is glorified in poems, romanticized in war stories, and preached by those who benefit from your blind allegiance. But in the real world, the cold world where power is hunted and defended, loyalty must never be unconditional. Loyalty must be measured, calculated, and strategic. To pledge yourself fully to anyone without constant evaluation of their value and their direction is to put a blade in their hand and your neck on the table. The powerful man understands this. Every alliance is temporary unless it continues to serve purpose. You may share blood, memories, or even victories, but if the path of the person you are loyal to begins to diverge from yours, you must not follow out of sentiment. You must not cling to history while they drag you toward mediocrity or destruction. Loyalty is not a virtue when it becomes servitude. It is not noble when it kills your vision. If your loyalty costs you your clarity, it is not strength. It is a slow and silent suicide. Those who demand loyalty rarely offer it in return. They speak of unity, of brotherhood, of shared battles. That's not a sign of failure. Choose Evoy, their new Yoon Big Van, is an advantage over your Operaun. The man who has tied himself blindly to others becomes disposable the moment he becomes inconvenient. Look closely at history. Every king betrayed by his most trusted advisor. Every general abandoned by his own soldiers. Every empire crumbled by internal allegiance gone unchecked. They were not brought down by enemies. They were brought down by misplaced loyalty. Your allegiance should follow your interest, not the other way around. You are not obligated to bleed for those who no longer contribute to your rise. If someone once stood by you in your weakness but now resents your strength, they are no longer an ally. They are a liability. If they once inspired you but now anchor you, you owe them nothing but distance. Loyalty that outlives usefulness becomes a chain, and the man who drags chains cannot run. The cunning understand that loyalty is a tool, not a religion. It is to be given with caution, monitored with precision, and withdrawn without apology. The world is filled with people who wear the mask of loyalty while waiting for the moment to betray. They smile, they vow, they swear, but inside they keep score. And when your moves no longer benefit them, their mask begins to crack. If you have not prepared for that moment, if you have allowed yourself to depend emotionally or strategically on their presence, you will fall with them. Your circle must be made of individuals who are aligned in purpose, not just in past. Family, friends, lovers, none are immune to the rot of stagnation, the jealousy of your evolution, or the quiet fear of your independence. And so, you must test everyone, not with words, but with silence, not with declarations, but with decisions. Say no and see who stays. Move alone and see who resents you. Remove the benefit and see who forgets the bond. These are not betrayals, they are revelations. Loyalty that cannot survive distance, boundaries, or independence was never loyalty. It was dependency disguised as devotion. True loyalty exists, but it is rare and cold. It is forged through trials, through shared goals, and through brutal honesty. It requires constant alignment, not blind agreement. It demands strength, not sacrifice. If you are giving more than you gain, you are not loyal, you are enslaved. And power does not belong to slaves, no matter how noble their intentions. Every time you tie yourself to someone out of guilt, memory, or obligation, you give them partial control over your destiny. You let their weakness leak into your strategy. You let their doubts infect your clarity. This is not unity, it is contamination. The wise do not cut ties lightly, but they do cut them. Because in a world where men are judged by outcomes, not intentions, loyalty without strategy is suicide dressed in honor. The moment you begin to rise, the foundation of every relationship you've ever known will start to tremble. Not because you've become cruel, arrogant, or unrecognizable, but because you've become different. And different is dangerous to those who have built their identity around your weakness. The people who once praised your potential will flinch when it begins to manifest. Your discipline makes their laziness visible. Your ambition makes their excuses echo louder. And your independence reminds them how long they've been depending on your compliance. They loved you when you were relatable, when you struggled like them, complained like them, stayed stagnant like them. But once you began to act instead of wish, to sharpen instead of soften, to ascend instead of delay, they grew uncomfortable. Because now, your very existence is an accusation. Without saying a word, you expose everything they're not doing. You force them to look in the mirror. And most people do not want mirrors, they want masks. They will not attack you directly at first. Their resistance will come in subtle waves. A sarcastic comment masked as humor. A passive-aggressive remark disguised as concern. You're so busy now, I guess we just don't matter anymore. You've changed. You think you're better than us now. These are not just words. They are emotional probes. They are testing you, trying to see if you still belong to them, if you can still be tamed, guilted, or bent back into the version of yourself they could manage. The truth is, your evolution makes them feel abandoned, not because you've actually left them, but because they can no longer control you. Their influence fades as your vision sharpens. They used to shape your behavior with approval, with tradition, with emotional leverage. Now you've outgrown that leash, and what do people do when their control slips? They disguise their resentment as concern. They label your focus as selfishness. They call your independence cold, because it's easier to shame your growth than to face their own paralysis. This is the tragedy of personal power. It often costs you the comfort of the familiar. You begin to walk alone, not because you want to, but because the path narrows. The higher you climb, the fewer people can breathe that air. They want the fruits of your labor, but not the discipline. They want to enjoy your success, but not evolve beside you. They will cling to the old version of you, desperate to drag you back into the identity that made them feel needed. And if you resist, they will say you've become cold. But coldness is not a flaw. It is the temperature required to preserve your vision in a world set on melting it. There is a subtle war between who you are becoming and who they need you to stay. Every time you speak with clarity, they will call it arrogance. Every time you set boundaries, they will say you're distant. Every time you choose progress over tradition, they will label it betrayal. But understand this, what they call betrayal is often just refusal. Refusal to shrink, refusal to stagnate, refusal to apologize for being more than they expected. And so, you must harden, not into stone, but into steel, flexible, but unbreakable. You must learn to disappoint those who benefit from your weakness. You must learn to say no without explanation, to let go without guilt, to outgrow without warning. Your future does not need permission from your past. And anyone who truly loves you will evolve with you, or step aside without resentment. Your mission will cost you more than you thought. You will lose the applause of the crowd that once cheered you on. You will lose the comfort of shared mediocrity. You will lose the illusion that loyalty always equals support. But in return, you gain the one thing that cannot be faked: clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you want, and who can walk with you beyond the threshold of transformation. The most dangerous lies are not spoken by enemies, they are whispered by those closest to you, and worse, by your own emotions. Most men are blind not because they lack vision, but because they refuse to look. They don't want to see the betrayal behind the smile, the resentment behind the praise, the envy beneath the congratulations. Their hearts are too warm, too open, too desperate to believe in loyalty where none exists, and so they walk into traps with their eyes wide open, seduced by the illusion of safety. But the man with a cold heart does not suffer this fate. He is not numb, but sharpened, not cruel, but precise. Coldness, for him, is not a lack of love. It is the refusal to be blinded by it. A cold heart is not born. It is forged through repetition, through the wounds that came not from strangers, but from those you once defended. It remembers the soft betrayals, the ones too quiet to prove, too subtle to confront, the sudden shift in tone when you shared a win, the hesitation before the applause, the friends who disappeared the moment your vision required discipline, the family who only supported you when you stayed small. The warm-hearted man explains these things away. He tells himself stories to preserve comfort. They didn't mean it. They're just going through something. They still care. But the cold-hearted man sees clearly, because he has chosen clarity over comfort. He watches people not for what they say, but for what they repeat. Patterns, not promises. Results, not intentions. And through this lens, the truth becomes undeniable. He sees how people grow quiet when he rises. He sees how old bonds grow bitter when he chooses solitude. He sees how those who once loved him begin to fear him, not because he has become evil, but because he has become untouchable. You must understand, people love the version of you they can influence. The moment you become immune to their approval, you become a threat. The cold-hearted man does not react, he observes. He does not lash out, he remembers. And in remembering, he becomes immune. Because betrayal, once seen without sentiment, loses its power. You no longer beg for explanations. You no longer offer second chances to patterns that have already proven fatal. You no longer cling to history in the hope it will redeem the present. You move in silence. You cut what needs to be cut. You protect your kingdom without apology. Most men are destroyed not by enemies, but by their inability to see their allies clearly. They assume that shared blood equals shared vision, that shared struggle equals shared loyalty. But the cold-hearted man knows better. He knows that comfort breeds expectation, that proximity breeds entitlement, that many of the people you help will one day turn on you, not because you harmed them, but because you stopped needing them. And this is the ultimate crime to the insecure, your independence. A cold heart is not closed, it is guarded. It knows that trust must be earned, not given as charity. It listens deeply, but speaks carefully. It tests loyalties before it invests. It demands proof before it offers vulnerability. And in this discipline there is safety, not the safety of isolation, but the safety of self-possession. When your heart no longer controls your decisions, you become unshakable. You no longer fear loss, because you no longer build on unstable ground. Others will call this paranoia. Let them. They speak from the warmth of ignorance, not the wisdom of survival. They have not yet been gutted by those they loved. They have not yet built something worth envying. When they do, they too will understand that to see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be, is the greatest strength a man can possess. And only a cold heart can see through the fog of delusion with unwavering eyes. The path to power is not paved with softness, nor is it maintained through sentiment. It is forged in solitude, tested by betrayal, and refined through ruthless clarity. If you are to rise, truly rise, you must become something the world cannot bend. You must detach your emotions from your decisions, sever your guilt from your vision, and watch even your closest bonds through the lens of strategy. Those you call loved ones may love only the version of you that serves them. They may speak loyalty while preparing retreat. They may demand your warmth while extinguishing your fire. To survive this world is not enough. You must dominate it. And domination demands a heart disciplined into steel, one that does not flinch at distance, rejection, or emotional warfare. You must learn to stand alone, to trust slowly, to love with boundaries, and to cut without warning. Because in the end, your greatest enemy is not always the stranger in the dark. It is the familiar face you refused to question. The man who succeeds is not the one who clings to comfort, but the one who sees clearly, acts decisively, and never forgets that power favors the cold-blooded.